Hi, Denae.
Hey,
How are we?
I am good. Just
Good.
starting off a Monday, and
Feels like a Thursday for some reason for me.
I think it's the weather.
It is the
Dark.
weather. That and then random Tuesday off tomorrow for Veterans Day.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, my kids don't have school tomorrow, but they do today. So it's a little weird.
That's always a pain when those types of holidays fall right in the middle of
Yeah, it's okay.
everything.
I'll do something fun with them tomorrow and make the best.
Yeah, there
So,
you go. I'm trying to. I'll still have my child care since mine's not in school, but still gonna kind of use the day to like get some things organized for business, some things organized for personal, and just kind of do the day that I need to like get organized.
yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to talk about market update. Today is November 10th, 2025. So we will release this probably on the 12th. But this should be pretty timely. Talk about, the Fed meeting last month, how the market reacted to that, couple mortgage updates that are pretty interesting in the news
Yeah.
right now. And then I'll kind of dive in, touch on quick stats for Snohomish and King County. So
Yeah.
take
So on the mortgage front, I think the last time we did this, I can't remember this, but the government is still shut down as of the 10th. Um, who knows what's going to come, whether by the time we actually release it or not. But 2 weeks ago, the Federal Reserve met. They did cut their interest rates. And then we saw mortgage rates get worse right after.
Mhm.
And we all kind of expected that. It was a bit more extreme than I would say that we expect than what we would have expected. And the reason being is during Powell's press conference, he essentially said, if we don't get the data that we need for inflation and employment and the data that's produced based off of the government that they won't get if the government's still shut down, they're not going to cut in December. He also left it open to like, even if we do get it and it's not what we, you know, are expected to see, we won't cut. But like, so there's a potential that we don't see a rate cut in December. And so that had the market kind of adjust um, where
Like, are
they're
we
investing.
talking, it's been about a 1/4% interest rate worsening, roughly, right? Quarter to like half a point, half a percentage.
Yeah, probably some. I think that's probably a pretty good estimate of the worsening over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
So,
it's
um,
like rates were like real close to 6-ish, like before the meeting, and everyone was really excited. And then like I'm like, what is going on?
I like that's why I tell people, and I work with my clients on developing a strike rate um, for refinancing because it can go away like this. And there's a couple of people that missed out on it because
Boot.
they weren't engaging in conversation until rates dropped. And by the time we go over the refinance and they like, people are busy and all that, it was too late. So there's people that I'm like, okay, that's fine, that doesn't make sense right now, but let's get numbers put together and get on the same page of what makes sense for you.
Yeah, get your file ready to go. So when it does make sense, you can lock that rate
See
in.
that, I'm ready to be like, hey, we saw the numbers, I locked you in, let's get the paperwork going.
Yeah.
It's just it can change so quickly that you got to be prepared.
Mhm. For sure. For sure.
So we'll see what happens over the next couple weeks.
When's the next Fed meeting?
Uh, middle of December.
Let me look it up. Just one.
Yeah, I don't know the exact date. It's sometime in the middle of December. So, if everything opens up in the next couple of weeks, there's a chance that we'll still get those reports out and we'll see a little bit more sentiment on what's going to happen. And if we do get stuff and during the different press conferences, the smaller press conferences that are in between them, if there starts to be a sentiment that they are, in fact, in December, I could see mortgage rate reacting to that and improving again. But until we kind of see that, I think we're
In a
getting,
holding pattern. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So,
It looks like their meetings are scheduled for December 9th and 10th. The meeting will conclude with the release of a policy decision at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on December 10th, followed by a press conference with the Fed Chair Powell at
yeah, so they
2:30
have their
p.m.
meeting, they always have their meeting the first day,
Yep.
and then they conclude it on the next day and then do the release and everything. So we'll see what happens with those and how it affects rates. You know, I feel like over the last couple of years, I am not emotionally affected by rates anymore, because I can't control them. And, if it makes sense for people to move and take advantage of it, there are pros and cons and benefits during different times and hardships during other times of like, or not hardships, but like things that less negotiating power and stuff like that. But you got to go based off the time that
Right.
makes sense for the individual person. But
Absolutely. And I think like part of our role as an agent and a lender is to react to rates and know how that's going to impact our clients. Obviously, if rates are higher, on my side, my job is to try and get price down, get a big credit from the seller, like that sort of thing. And then like on the opposite side, like if rates are lower, it's my job to make sure my buyers understand that they are going against other buyers to get that house. So it's like we have to react really quickly and know how to pivot based on interest rates
yeah.
and their impact on the market for sure.
And I mean, we say this over and over again on here as well as like to our clients is like getting prepared early
Mhm.
allows you to take advantage of the lower rates and lower competition because like the refinances I was talking about, they reach out or they engage in me reaching out when the news say that rates have dropped. It's the same for the buyers. That news comes out, oh, rates have dropped. Someone's like, oh, maybe I should start looking at a home to buy a home. Well, then they start their conversations and they're going to be a couple weeks out. Whereas if you're already prepared,
Mhm.
you can snap it right away.
I think too, preparing early, having a conversation early with a lender and your agent, like even months before you even start to think about buying, it takes the emotion out of it. So if you are like, oh shoot, my dream house just came on the market, like we got to scramble. Like your emotions are heightened. You're not thinking as clearly. Obviously, your lender and your agent, if they're good, they're going to take the emotions out and help you think logically. But I think that emotions are really, really heightened when you have a lot of stress and pressure to make big decisions really quickly. And so if you can prep earlier and know your numbers, know what's comfortable, and then obviously when the timing is right, I think the emotional part of buying and selling is a lot less heightened than making super quick decisions, by the seat of your pants. Is that the saying?
Yeah. A couple other mortgage news things that have been starting to be talked about is there has been nothing's been officially announced, nothing is implemented, nothing like that, but there is talk about a 50-year mortgage.
Five,
Um,
five,
50.
zero.
Yeah. And I think there's pros and cons to it. People aren't staying in their homes as long anymore. So, yes, if you look at an amortization schedule and you look at the full length, it's like that is not a smart decision. But are you going to be in that home and that loan for 50 years? Probably not. Um, so, you kind of have to take it with what it is. When you look at full amortization, I don't think it makes sense. You're going to pay so much in interest. But when you look at, okay, if I don't stay in that one loan for 50 years, or maybe not even that home, you start to build equity.
Right.
And you start to build equity from the payments, but also from just appreciation, same as you could any other loan term. So, I still think it was literally just announced on like Friday. So I haven't done too much research on like what's being talked about with it, but I think that there's definitely pros and cons. But I think that's with anything. Like these things are out because there's pros and cons to all of it, and it's trying to appeal to get people
I think, like, from my perspective, could a 50-year mortgage get more buyers into the door of homeownership? Yes. However, I think they really need to think about, am I going to be here the amount of time that makes sense for either a refi into a lower, like, term mortgage, or obviously a lower rate? Like, I think you have to be really, really careful when you're thinking about long-term planning with a 50-year mortgage, because yeah, what if you have to, like, what if something horrible happens to you in a year or two after you buy that house? And then you may or may not have any equity built up to be able to afford to even sell it and make a profit, right? So I think that's just something I would, like, caution buyers on. The other funny thing is, I was just, like, on my phone a couple nights ago, just scrolling through reels. I had the sound on, and I come across, like, a video from a prominent agent talking about the 50-year mortgage, like his thoughts on pros and cons. And my husband was sitting there and he's like, how are people going to retire? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, if you have a 50-year mortgage, you're just never going to retire. And I was like, I see what he's saying. However, most families are not in the same house for 50 years. Like, that's incredible if you are. But I mean, like, I know, like, a couple people out of my entire database that have lived in their house longer than, like, 10 years, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, you at some point, something's going to happen. Jobs are going to pivot. You're going to go out of state. You want to be closer to family. Maybe you have a hardship, so you need to liquidate. Like, it is so, so rare that you're going to be in that house longer than, 7 to 10 years.
Yeah, 100%. And I have borrowers that are in their like 80s, that come and they're like, so I'm 80 something years old. Will the bank lend to me for 30 years? And because, in their head, they're like, I'm not going to live the 30 years, but it's, you know, this is where everyone, like, the banking is a business.
Yeah.
So they, if they don't care, they're still getting interest, like,
Hmm.
on it. So, and I don't think paying off your mortgage is a must for retirement.
I
I
don't
mean,
either.
there's some tax benefits in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what comes from that, what sort of guideline restrictions, any other changes with all of that of what actually developed from that.
Yeah.
And I think that there's pros and cons. I think, it, I don't know, I probably should have looked this up, but before, like, not that long ago, like a 30-year mortgage came out.
Hmm.
And so it's not like a 30-year mortgage has been around forever. That is a thing. Are you looking it up?
I sure am.
Yeah.
It was introduced in the 30s, actually. And it says the concept emerged as a solution to the crisis of short, risky mortgages that put families at risk of a foreclosure. And this is Gemini, so Google. 1948, Congress authorized a 30-year mortgage for new construction. 1954, the 30-year mortgage was authorized for existing homes, so like resale. And then 1960s, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage became the most popular and dominant form of home loan. But I do remember in the 90s, like as a kid, my parents like had ARMs. Like ARMs were adjustable rate mortgages were a really, really big deal because rates were so high back then.
Yeah.
Back then.
Like this, a 30-year was still introduced later.
Right.
So I feel like sometimes you gotta adjust. And until I really see the ins and outs, what's the difference? Because a 30-year is a higher interest rate than a 15 and a 20-year. So like until I really see what those differences are, I think I kind of lay on, I think there's pros and cons. And I think people just need to be
Yeah.
aware and well educated on what they're getting into. And the same goes for like an ARM. I think there's some people that it totally makes sense. I've had people close on refinances on ARMs over the last like 6 months. And as long as they know, and I've taken the time to like educate them and really explain it, like I think that there's some benefit in that. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what comes from that. The other thing that was announced was that the Fannie Mae is going to remove the minimum credit score. So I I don't know what to say about that either.
So Fannie Mae, so that means like conventional, like FHA type loans. Like what type of loans are we talking about specifically?
Conventional loan. Fannie Mae would be a conventional loan, and you have Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So right now, Fannie Mae has announced it. Freddie Mac, I'm sure, will follow. This just means that it's going to be based on the automated underwriting system,
Okay.
and the overall package of the file.
Like a profile of the
Yep, yep.
buyer.
That doesn't mean like it doesn't mean you're going to get approved if you have a 520 credit score. It's like, why do you have a ton of late payments? Are you late? Like a lender is probably still not going to, they're going to be like, okay, you have a low down payment, you have a low credit score. Like this is way too risky. You have no reserves.
I kind of wonder if it's going to be like if the risk profile, like credit, I think they're probably trying to remove just credit score being the like deciding factor on people like obtaining homeownership. I feel like it's like let's reassess the risk profile because if you have a lower credit score because you just started building credit, but you have major payments on time, like you've made your rent payments, like all those things, and you have a good income, but you just don't have a lot of down payment or whatever, like I feel like we're open, that would be opening up opportunities for those homeowners,
100%.
or those wannabe homeowners.
Also doesn't mean that individual lenders can still put in a credit overlay. So an individual lender could say, no, our minimum credit is still
Oh,
600.
okay.
So that can mean you go to lender A that has that overlay and you have sub 600, you can't get approved. Lender B, you could. So it's those some lenders can always add their own overlays.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I think, FHA has gone down to a lower credit score for a while. Um, there's still going to be a lot of factors on the approval. It's going to look at the full profile of the borrower. I have a feeling the lower credit scores are going to be targeted more towards someone with a large down payment. Like you're not doing a 3% down, 520 credit score with no reserves like that, but I think all of these things are just trying to open up home ownership
Okay.
opportunities. And I think with anything, it's being educated on it, being educated on the pros and cons, and making a decision of what makes sense for the
Right.
individual and the family.
Right. Absolutely.
Wow.
It's good.
Um, like I kind of mentioned, we've just come off some, you know, low rates for like the average year or the lowest rates of the year, which we always see has an effect on housing movements and housing listings with kind of the stats you're seeing on your side of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had, back in September, I had one buyer get like a 3% credit from the seller, no problem. On the flip side, I had a seller who we dropped price. That buyer, interestingly enough, didn't want a credit, even though we were offering it for like a rate buy down. So it's interesting, but they had a very large down payment that probably didn't
Yeah.
move the needle too much for them. I've got a buyer right now that was able to score a 4.5% credit paid by the seller. Um, and then I've got another buyer that I'll be showing them later this week. And we're targeting a home that's been on the market for over 90 days. And I think there's going to be some good negotiating room. So, like I said in the last episode or the episode before, like if you are a contingent buyer, you need to sell in order to buy. Right now is the sweet spot. I think the windows are closing. If you need to sell your house, though, you need to be really strategic on how you're pricing your home because wishing for the highest number possible, while I would love to get that for you, you've got like time that's like going up against you. Like you gotta get a buyer for your house before that seller's gonna say, okay, sorry, like I need to move on to a different buyer. So just keeping that in mind. But let's take a peek at stats real quick. All right. So obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you can't see these stats. So I'll talk through them as best as I can. We do have this on YouTube, so you can take a peek at this. You can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So Snohomish County for residential sales price for October, remember November, we don't have stats yet, is sitting at 858,000 as the average sales price. This is down from a high of 932 back in May. And then if we look at a year ago, we were at 891. So slightly down actually from a year ago. Now this is going to be subjective based on the neighborhood, but I'd say like for the most part we're pretty flat. Some months are higher than others, like the spring market, but we're pretty flat as far as like appreciation goes.
And this also, like, this doesn't mean that home values have gone down.
No,
This
I mean you look at bottom of 2023, we are way up.
Well, but that could just mean that like this isn't showing appreciation. This is the average sale price.
Right.
So it could just mean that lower homes are converting versus the higher homes other times. I'm looking at that correctly, right?
Right. But like let's say that you're in the house for 5 years. Average
Yeah.
sales price was 538 back in January 2020. Now you're sitting at, over $300,000 of appreciation since then. Like, that was a good investment. I mean, obviously looking at this graph, if you're on YouTube, back 10 years ago, you were 362 average sales price, and now we're at 858. Like things are doing really nicely. Okay, so let's pop over for homes for sale. So right now we are actually down a little bit from a high of 1,600 homes on the market in Snohomish County down to about 1,551 homes for sale. This is higher though than a year ago. So last October we had about 1,100 homes for sale. So we have about 400 extra homes for sale this year. Days on market on average is taking about 35 days to find your buyer to go pending on a house. Last year was about 28 days, so it was a little bit quicker to sell last year. We've obviously got these highs and lows of days on market, but right now it's taking about a month to go pending. Another quick stat I like is the percent of original price. Right now, you can expect for, let's say, $1 million home to pay $969,000 for that house. So slightly under list price. We were at 100% back in, April, March. So right now, this tells me people are getting deals, and I'm seeing it with my buyers. Okay. Let's flip over to King County. All right, here we go. Okay, sales price. Average sales price right now is 1.273 for King County residential. A year ago, we were at 1.208, so up slightly. So that's great. And then if we look at homes for sale, we have 3931 homes for sale. This is down from our high back in July of 4,262 homes for sale. But a year ago, we were at 2,700 homes for sale. We're up quite a lot, homes for sale. So buyers, you have a lot of choices.
I was actually just looking today, just trying to get an idea. I have a buyer that is looking to buy a condo in Seattle, and I was like, okay, what are roughly HOAs? So I just got onto Redfin to look, and there was a lot of condos that just on the market.
Yeah, so if we look at condos specifically in King County, we've got 1,900 condos for sale. So compare that with just residential, that's an additional 2,000, almost 2,000 homes for sale. Obviously they're condos, but I mean, that's a good chunk. That's a third of the market is condo sales. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at days on market for King County. Again, roughly around a month before going pending with a buyer. Last October, we were at about 25 days. So it's taking just a little bit longer, maybe like upwards of a week beyond what we were at last year to find your buyer, go pending on a house. If we look at percent of original list price, again, same as Snohomish County, you're looking at paying about 96, 97% of list price on average. So King County is sitting at about $975,000 for $1 million home. A year ago, we were at 99.2%. So we're actually down a little bit. Does that mean that appreciation has gone down? No. The data tells us otherwise. It just means that right now is a really, really sweet spot for buyers wanting to buy a home. So that is stats. Any other stats you want me to pull, Denae?
No, I think that gives a pretty, with you showing those and going over those on each of these, it's really just to like give some insight on what's going on. And I think like summarizing what I take from that is like there's inventory, there's not a ton, but you have a second to think about it, and there's just going to be a little bit of give and take, and there's some are going to go quicker, some are going to go slower. And, as a buyer, you have a little bit more opportunity to make the unemotional decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah. No one likes being an emotional buyer or seller. Like it's horrible. I listed my house a couple weeks ago. I've often had to take off my emotional seller hat and put my realtor logical hat on and go, this is normal. This is normal to not have a buyer by 11 days on market.
Exactly, exactly. So, cool. Well, we'll be back in a couple weeks.
All right. Have a good day. Bye.